Hey, man, welcome to Dukes and Bell Behind the Curtain, where we tell you what today's show is going to be all about. Carl is predisposed, but he will be with us live from Twin Peaks in Kennesaw today off of Barrett Parkway. Going to be a lot of fun. Always have a great crowd on Friday, our usual Misfit crew. And I'll invite you guys, if you've never been to the first time, it's always a good show. That's Orrin. He presses the buttons. That is Day Day, the brains of the operation. And that's Ellie, who's really nonplussed by this whole process. Hey, man, we found out the Falcons have got our new general manager. And I got to be honest real quick, guys, in a good mood. It's Friday. Wasn't bitterly cold out. Take the dogs out for the walk, see the neighbors, got my coffee. Everything's good. And then I got a guy hit me up on Twitter because last night I wrote, I really like the hire of Ian Cunningham, assistant GM with the Bears. And I said, it's a good hire. He's got a good resume. And this guy comes back, not sure why anyone likes the hire. I'll like the hire if he proves his worth. It's too early to like or dislike a GM hire. And let me just pause. And I'm like, should I just call this guy an asshole? No, we're above that. We're better than that.
Yeah,
don't take a shot. So I just retweeted it and I said, this is social media. I go, I made what I thought, guys, was a cogent take on Ian Cunningham. We, of course, no shit, Sherlock. We don't know what he's going to do. We don't know how it's going to work out. But how do you judge somebody when all you have to go by is the resume? And his resume is, I think, what you want, guys. Start with Orrin and then Day Day. He worked with Ozzie Newsome in the Ravens. He worked with Howie Roseman in the Eagles. He's helped the turnaround with the Bears. He's with perennially good organizations. I'd like to infuse some of that genius juice into my organization. It might not work out, but I think it's a good hire just based on where he's been. What do you guys think?
It's funny the guy says that Ian has 2 rings. He's won 2 rings being in a front office position on both teams with the Ravens and the Eagles. That's not a bad thing to have on your resume at all, I wouldn't think, especially, too, when you help shape those rosters in terms of being player personnel. So the guy's very well thought of. And again, too, like, I don't want to compare him to our previous regime, but like we took the credentials and what was done with Terry Fontenot, and he was highly thought of when he came into that. Didn't work out, but you're basing what you're hiring these guys on right now based on what they've done before. And if that's the case, what he's done before automatically qualifies him for this job. He is very well equipped, very well versed in being the GM for this team. His background is great. It's been his references are great. Look up and down his resume, like where he's been, what he's done, where he's won.
Right.
Every place he's been has had levels of success. So that's where you start with the guy, and you're happy with the hire.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would say
I'm running Carl's not here. Carl's not here, Day Day. I'm like, and now Day Day.
But yeah, I mean, I think for me, it was kind of evident he was kind of going to be the lead dog in this. Remember, he interviewed for the president position, and it just kind of seems like they kind of were really leaning towards Ian Cunningham from maybe that first interview. Maybe they really liked what they heard from him back then. But I liken him to the Anseh Saleh situation with the Hawks, man. Like, to your guys' point, you got to look at where he's come from, and you would have to assume that guys that come from been around franchises that have gone about building their winning culture, you would like to think that someone in a role like Ian Cunningham was, especially most recently in Chicago as an assistant GM, you would like to think that they've been taking note and they understand that there's certain steps you need to take if you really want to strike the iron, strike right, strike the iron when it's hot, get your moves right, get your ducks lined up. So I would like to think he's going to bring that, that culture, what he's learned, right here to this Falcons fan base. And look, we know it's not going to be all on him. I think it's pretty evident. Kevin Stefanski has said it. Matt, even though he says he's going to let them cook, I think it's going to be very evident that the 3 of them are going to powwow a lot together to make sure, because you got to remember, this is for all 3 of them. New head coach, new president, new GM. They got to all 3 of them they got to be in sync on this. So I really feel like they're going to work hard together to make sure whatever decisions they make from player personnel, coaching staff, they're going to work really hard together to make sure they get this thing right and get this team to where, as a fan base, we want it to be, which is a winning playoff team contending year after year.
Right. And that's it. I mean, like I said, I thought, how else can you judge somebody? I mean, when you don't, none of our audience knows who Ian Cunningham was 3 weeks ago when he first started interviewing here at that time, the team president role. But it's like, okay, we don't know how. Yes. Right. I may drive into a truck today on the way to Twin Peaks. Okay, I may get killed walking my dog. I mean, yes, we don't know where it's going to go. But I mean, just to immediately throw that. It's like, I don't know what. I just don't know what people want. I mean, I know what they want. They're just miserable sons of guns, and that's it. It just drove me nuts. It's like the Falcons have got a fresh approach. Only time will tell. But you've taken elements from like Stefanski. I get it. Not a very compelling hire to some of our audience. They wanted probably John Harbaugh. They went with a veteran. They went with a guy with experience, a guy who's not going to make some of the mistakes which have hurt us. And this isn't just about like Raheem Morris. Arthur Smith was no great whiz at clock management, right? And game management and burning timeouts and strategy and third and short and fourth and short and all that stuff. So we hope that Stefanski will do better. He's already hired better assistants than we had here. Now, Tommy Rees, a lot of guys going, I don't, I get it. It's not that compelling. But the only thing, and Day and Oren, correct me if I'm wrong, I'll take a knee to Nick Saban on this. Nick Saban's got a pretty good track record with, talent evaluation, and he brought Tommy Rees to Alabama. Now, it took him a minute to get Milroe going, but they eventually got him going.
Something to think about. What I would say to that, like, my bad, I would say the one thing everyone should probably understand and look at is Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan was a part of this franchise in its best seasons ever, right? In the history of the franchise. So I would like to think that Matt Ryan is not going to want to allow this thing to go south. He's going to put forth his best effort. He understands what this franchise, what this fan base has been used to in the past, I guess you would say, when he was under center. So with him having that understanding, I would like to suggest to fans, like, look at the fact that you have a leader that knows what you got. Like, he knows, okay? Not to say Rod didn't know, because granted, Rod was here, but Matt Ryan truly understands from that player perspective what it is like for this franchise to be at its best. And I think that's what fans really should look at and say, you know what? Let's trust in Matt Ryan that he's going to do his all to get this right for us.
The trust part of it, Jay, that comes from me also is the fact that they didn't rush this. They took their time with this. This was a thought out, and I know we were the only team after Miami to look for a GM after they hired theirs. But this wasn't a like, hey, let's just go ahead and hire the first guy we want. Granted, we heard about Ian being the name weeks before the hire, but we also saw all the names they brought in. And we also saw, too, that it was another name that got a second interview here, too. So as far as I'm concerned, the fact that this was a measured process, it wasn't a rush process at all. That says a lot, too, about the competency of your front office. And says a lot, too, about the trust you should have in Matt Ryan, because they're not going to rush through this thing. This isn't a front office that's going to be, pressured to make decisions based on, for whatever reason whatsoever. When they're ready to make their decision, they're going to make their decision, and it's going to be the right one for them.
So now, guys, we wait and see. Now we can start talking about, hey, how are we going to handle the Kyle Pitts contract? Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Are they going to try to keep Algier, or are we going to simply try to find another stud in the draft? Because, we're going to run the football. In a perfect world, we talked about it yesterday. That would be great if we could keep. I just think Algier can make so much more money elsewhere. And we're in the middle of the pack as far as cap. I think we can create some more space, but it's not like, we've got, tons to spend. The Kirk Cousins thing, we were all excited. We talked about Zach Klein the other day on Channel 2 with his interview, which was, misheard that Penix Jr. was ahead of schedule. April's different from August. So, yeah, we're going to have that gap quarterback. And now, again, if you had told me, guys, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, Matt Ryan's going to be team president and Joe Flacco is going to be the starting quarterback for this team, when they both came out of the same draft in 2008.
Draft.
Yeah, but
up again, yeah.
And it ain't sexy, but I mean, if you believe in Penix Jr., unfortunately, Penix will only be doing mental reps, it seems like, until he can get out there physically, and then how much of him being under center and all the play action stuff we think we're going to get. But now we know we got our guy, and as Day said, I think Matt's got the bigger voice in the room. That's fine. And I was worried for a minute. Maybe we'd lose some candidates because you might feel a bit marginalized in this power structure. And we'll see how it develops. But, you can't go wrong with the resume. All right, guys. We're live at Twin Peaks today in Kennesaw. We got Brian McFadden. Steve Kuna is going to join us. And speaking of the Hawks, And they were horrible last night, but Oren, Day-Day was kind of to be expected. It's a back-to-back, and they were depleted. Now, Houston was coming off a back-to-back, but we were like, it wasn't our A team out there on the floor last night.
No, you were down.
And I was actually at the game. So I'll be honest with you. We were talking before we got started here, but the Hawks were hanging throughout the first 3 quarters. And then I'd say midway through the third quarter, I think Houston jumped out to about a 10-point lead. And at that point, I was kind of like, I think this is where it's starting to happen. And so sure enough, Houston never really looked back from that point. But I was pleased with how well they played early on, especially in that first half. But just didn't have enough of the guys there to really sustain it. What was throwing me off, I don't know if you guys got a chance or how much you got to watch, Nah was guarding KD. And I'm thinking to myself, why? I know he's a great defender, but KD is just like, right over the top of him.
Yeah, Dyson Daniels has more hops. Dyson Daniels can elevate as a better defender. So that was Quinn Snyder's plan, huh?
I guess so, man. I thought that was kind of odd because at first I thought it was like, did he get switched up on the screen? But no, he was guarding him.
I think the idea with that is just to be pesky enough with him on the perimeter, not let him get to his spots. But in the end, though, Kevin's going to do whatever he wants to because he's 6'13" and can shoot over anybody in the NBA. So
he's so long.
Yeah, last night was just an issue. Like, just didn't have the numbers. You, like Day said, the first 2.5 quarters you played well, and then the fact that your front court last night was limited to Christian Koloko and Muhammad Gay, and it just wasn't a great collection of individuals and depth last night. So Houston beat you up in the offensive boards. They're the best they're the best rebounding team in the NBA and also the best offensive rebounding team in the NBA. And last night they showed you why with the fact that even without Steven Adams, they were able to beat you up on the boards.
Right. Didn't have Cro-Magnon man out there. And of course, we don't have Porzingis. Not that Porzingis is that rim protector type guy. Yeah, man. So what's the line from Talladega Nights, Cal Naughton? I'm a little confused by your tactics. Yeah, I thought that Dyson Daniels was our best defender on their best player, but what do I know? Hey, man, speaking of the NBA, I guess it was Tim Legler, who you see on ESPN, played in the league. He put out some statements, and I saw this on Awful Announcing this morning, and it's funny because I say this all the time, and people are like, yeah, whatever. The NBA mails it in half the season. That's why they created the stupid in-season tournament to get guys to actually do their jobs and get fans to pay attention when the NFL is beating their brains in the ratings. Legler basically said is with these back-to-backs, you got teams just completely mailing it in, and just also teams. It started with Popovich. We know about load management and all that stuff, but he said it's creating just bad basketball where teams, if it's a third night on a road trip or whatever, you're just seeing teams getting worked. Like the Lakers the other night in Cleveland. LeBron comes back to Cleveland, Lakers get blown out. And you said, Oren, that interesting stuff from a former Hawk, Jeff Teague, about the same principle.
Yeah, so Jeff Teague does at 520 podcast with his buddies, and they asked him yesterday to rank the best point guards in Atlanta Hawks history, and he goes through Mookie and all the guys, Hudson and all those guys, and they mentioned Devin Harris. Not very well known in Hawks lore, but he was like, Devin is great in the regard that he taught me the code in the NBA very, very early, and he was effective at doing it.
What's the code?
What's the code? Yeah. He was like, this is what you do. You play your ass off for 3 games. You ball out for 3 games. You score points, do whatever, and then you sit out. Whether it's a toe or an ankle or a foot or a shoulder or an elbow, whatever, you sit out. You wait till you're back right. Then you go back on the court, play 3 or 4 more games, ball out. Then you sit out, get back right again. And he said that's the most effective way right now for guys in the NBA to show how worthy they are, because it's one thing to go out there and play slightly above average. You want to be maybe a slightly above average player for 75 games, or do you want to be a really good NBA player for 61 games? Which one would you rather be? And what's going to get you paid more?
All right, so the codes, that's like I said, man, it's just, look, I get it. You can't shorten the season because then ticket prices would be so astronomical, no one could afford it. But it's just, they got a problem, and I don't think Adam Silver's the guy that's going to hold anybody's feet to the fire, if we're honest on this. But it just struck me day. It's like, we've had these conversations off the air because as a kid, my dad was the biggest Knicks fan. My dad, loved the Knicks going back to the 50s, all the way, the Knickerbockers. And so I had a love-hate thing with the NBA because Patrick Ewing will do that to a man. But I love Bernard King, and I grew up with it, and I dug it. And now it's like, to me, sometimes it's like, All right, nothing's happening. It's like NASCAR. Get me back to the last 5 minutes, and I'll get what I need, and I'll have the storyline, and I'll see who stepped up at crunch time. Because last night the Rockets had it in cruise control for much of the night, then they threw the switch. They knew how to play it, the code. So it's a little disheartening, but it just things amp up and ramp up after the All-Star break. That's why they did that in-season tournament. So we'll talk about it with Carl. I want to mention that today on the program. What else we got today? You mentioned we got B-Mac and Puppy K. What else? What else you got on your show sheet today, Day?
Yeah, B-Mac and Puffy K, and believe it or not, we're probably gonna talk a little Braves, guys, because they come in pretty high on some preseason rankings.
Really?
Already up, a team that's considered going to be right back in the playoffs. So we'll throw that on there, get a little Braves chatter, because guys, we're just a month away before they have to report.
Not even.
It's going to be Fan Fest this weekend, but they canceled because of the weather.
Right. Couple of weeks is going to be pitchers and catchers. I mean, you're weak at shortstop right now with Kim taking time because he got hurt. Murphy, and if I never saw Murphy again, I don't care because I'm ready to, I want to see the young blood doing his thing. But no, it is interesting that you didn't really, and they're not the only team, but where's the starting pitching? Do you have enough starting pitching as you're dependent on guys coming off of injuries and young guys, going farther than they've ever gone, like Hurston Waldrop. So, Day, you're telling me that people are a little more optimistic about this? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we got Jurickson Profar. That's certainly something. I just can't wait to see Drake Baldwin getting the lion's share. And I thought, if anything, in Snickers last year with the Rookie of the Year, I thought Drake needed to play even more. I think most people agree. We could have, there was like 20 more games that could have had him out there. But all right, we'll talk some Braves as well. Guys, we are going to be at Twin Peaks in Kennesaw. Carl will be there, and we'll talk about our new GM. How can you hate on a guy you haven't even met who's got a good resume?
It's the fear of the unknown.
Real quick, I know we're over time, not over budget, but over time. Real quick, it's Falcons-itis. You're not going to give them the benefit of the doubt because we've been terrible for 8 years. We've been historically bad. But as a fan, guys, there's got to be a glimmer of hope or a little part of you that says, and I do it every year because every year they joke around. I'm not going to be the hype man. And then I get to camp and I start hyping it up because as a fan, the juices get rolling and I'm excited. Sooner or later, the worm will turn and we'll get this thing right. Maybe it takes Matt Ryan to get it right. But I get it, but the pushback sometimes to me is too toxic. We'll talk about it today. Have a great weekend. Hopefully we'll see you at Twin Peaks, guys. Peace.